Hey everyone, my name is Case Aiken. I am the host of Another Past podcast and Men of Steel here on the Certain Point of View podcast network. And I wanted to talk about a game series that I love, and that's Saints Row. Specifically, I want to talk about Saints Row 2. So the first Saints Row game came out for the Xbox 360 shortly after launch, and it was basically seen as a next-gen version of Grand Theft Auto. Basically, the developers somehow snuck in there a little bit before Rockstar had a chance to put out an updated Grand Theft Auto game, and this was a really solid clone. Like, there were a lot of clones before, like the Driver series comes to mind first, but like there were tons of games coming out on the previous console cycle, and this was the first one out the gate for next gen stuff, and it was pretty good. It was fine. Then Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, and the series had to pivot because Grand Theft Auto 4 was solid. Like, it was generally not seen as the better of the two that came out for that console cycle, but still very solid. So the question was, how do you take this further? And the idea was, well, Grand Theft Auto is doing these like very specific stories. They have characters who are going on journeys. Why don't we do whatever the fuck we want? And so with Saints Row 2, they made it possible to do whatever the fuck you wanted. Like, the previous game had a character creator, but it was limited, relatively speaking. You were always playing kind of like a novice gangster who they would call playa, as a fun nod to you being the player. But with Saints Row 2, you could do whatever you wanted. Like they had a slider for your gender that you could set anywhere on the spectrum. So you could be someone masculine, someone feminine, or you could be like completely neutral. Like they just wanted you to have the option to do whatever you wanted. You could pick whatever voice you wanted, and it wasn't tied to your body type. You could do any sort of look. Like, you could make a perfect version of the Joker, or you could make Fu Manchu, or you could make Mike Tyson, or whatever kind of gangster you wanted to be, because it's a crime game. Pick your villain and then play your villain out. But then it goes so much further than that. It's a game that is so much fun, and fun is the operative reason to play this game. Like, there are your regular bank robbery kind of missions. You steal cars the same way. It's the same basic kind of concept, but there are missions where you drive around with a sewage truck flinging poo at buildings. It's amazing. It is so much fun. You get like cool vehicles, lots of cool options. It was great, but you had to work for it. Like, you had to find those like cool costume stores where you could like get crazy outfits, or you had to like really play deep into it to get like the truly insane stuff. But it was just a really fun game. Ultimately, what sold this whole franchise for me was this game. I had not played the first one when this came out, and there was a review by Ben Yahtzee Crawshaw for Zero Punctuation, where he described it as being a game where you got to play a Batman villain. Like, you could play someone kind of like the Riddler. Like, you could have a Cockney accent character in a bowler hat and two-tone shoes. And like, that was really interesting. So obviously I picked it up, and look, the controls are great. There was like intricate fighting systems. There was all kinds of fun quests to do in the game. And by quests, I mean go commit insurance fraud or get into a bare knuckle boxing ring. Lots of fun, like crazy options out there. And it created this like arms race with then the Grand Theft Auto series. Like, how much can we take it up? And I will admit, the following games in the series are good, but they are not as good as 2. 3 is a little too in love with going over the top, to the point where there are zombie missions, and there's you ultimately take on S.H.I.E.L.D. or an equivalent of Marvel's S.H.I.E.L.D. with like hover bikes and stuff, and it's a bit much. Like, it's cool, it's a lot of fun, but like it's all about the spectacle at that point. And then 4 is going even more insane, but like it's a little bit funnier than 3, so it's sort of I would rank the series 2, 4, 1, 3. 3's not bad, it's just the worst of a series of all great games, and 2 is the best of these games. If you enjoy a really free-form, kind of flexible, open-world city crime game, it's hard to beat this one. I mean, sure, it's now at this point a decade old, so there's plenty of areas where the tech just hasn't caught up, but it kind of perfected a lot of the things that Grand Theft Auto had to do. Gunplay is great, the navigation around the city is great, the flexibility for your missions is great, your character feels like he has agency, there's games within games, there's lots of fun like story beats for all your characters. Really, really just solid stuff. The voice cast is amazing. You've got actors like Daniel Day Kim, Eliza Dushku, Jamie Presley, Jay Moore, Keith David, Michael Dorn. So many amazing people. Neil Patrick Harris, even. Like, it's a wonderful roster of familiar voices playing crazy out there parts. I would highly recommend checking it out. just to see the weird, like, just to see Neil Patrick Harris as a weird Rastafarian stoner. Like, it's amazing. The other part that's really great about this series is that you are consistently going up a tier as far as your villainy that you're role-playing here. The first game, you're an upstart gang member, and eventually you're the boss of the gang. In this game, you're the boss of the gang, and the gang is taking a hard turn, but you work your way up to basically owning the city that you're in. Spoilers that you advance in your status in the game, I guess. And the successive games continue that even further. Like, they go kind of ridiculous in terms of how far your character goes, ultimately becoming crime boss and also kind of boss of the world. It's fantastic, and it's fun to explore that element. Like, that's why it makes sense in the sequels that you're dealing with like something like S.H.I.E.L.D. fighting a parody of Nick Fury, because eventually you are a full-on supervillain. And in this game, you're a 1966 Batman villain. Like, it is spot on. So that's Saints Row 2. It is a 3D open-world crime simulating video game. It is a sandbox game just like Grand Theft Auto, and it is not unfair to call it a Grand Theft Auto clone. But it is a really fun one. My introduction to the Grand Theft Auto series was Grand Theft Auto 2, which was a little bit more absurd. It had like a sci-fi setting to it, and I always wanted games that were more like it. And honestly, Saints Row, the series in general, but 2 especially, really satisfies that itch. Like, you get to experience a truly escalation of scale in a way that a lot of these games don't really provide. And sure, games have come out since. It's a decade old, but it was great. It's something that's really fun to revisit. The graphics hold up pretty well. You know, it's a 360 game or a PS3 game. Like, whatever. The art style was really good. The flexibility for your characters, great. You will end up wanting to have everything in your gang colors by the end of it, because they make you really proud of the gang that you are the boss of, and everyone looks up to you and you feel like a badass. And ultimately, sometimes you just want a video game where you feel that way. So if you like open world sandbox kind of games, this is a really good one to check out if you haven't already. Again, the sense of humor is great. The controls are spot on. It's a really fun time. I would definitely check it out. And if you really like it, check out the rest of the series. Just know that, like, this is the apex of the Saints Row franchise. But the story continues, and it's really fun. The whole adventure is great. I went back and played Saints Row 1 recently, and it still holds up as a really fun game. So definitely worth checking out. Anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble about a game I really love. Again, I am Case Aiken. You can find me on Twitter at Case Aiken. I am the host of Another Pass, which is a movie analysis podcast, and Men of Steel, which is a Superman love letter podcast. Check us out. We're here at certainpov.com. A lot of fun. So yeah, go do crimes. Why not? It's a lot of fun. And fun is a big reason why you should be playing video games. It makes sense. Happy gaming.